Teri Brown. Welcome back to the Bookaholic Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
Yes. And just to reintroduce you to my audience, you are my most visited author on this channel. This is your fourth appearance.
Yeah.
We do have another author in the running. He made his second appearance the other week. So you never know. He might catch up with you. I don't know. It might be an overtake, but right now you are number one. And just to, again, to refresh everyone's memory, you were first here with your book centered around the Ukraine called Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. Your second appearance was about a World War II epic called An Enemy Like Me. And your third showing was Daughters of the Green Mountain Gap. And today you have something totally different to talk about, which is nonfiction. And you're just a woman of many talents. You can write different genres, expand your mind here and there. And I reread your biography, your biographical sketch, and you're just super talented. You can do anything you put your mind to, which is what you're talking about in your new book called 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure.
Right.
We have to explain that title to people.
Exactly. So it's a mouthful, but there's a reason for it. My husband and I rode across the United States from the coast of Oregon to Washington, D.C. on a tandem bicycle. So that's a two-seater bicycle, 3,102 miles. We did it for a multitude of reasons. He has wanted to do it since 1976. And we went in 2020. It was a long wait for him. He saw a group of college kids do it for the bicentennial, and he just said that's what he wanted to do, but he was in the military and it wasn't possible. And so then it was always something he wanted to do. I had gotten out a really bad 14-year-long emotionally abusive relationship. And he and I were dating, and I wanted to do something spectacular, something huge, because I thought that I needed to prove to the world that I still had value.
Right.
How the world was fine. It was me that needed to know that I had.
Yes.
But I wanted to do big. And when he said to me, hey, I've always wanted to go across the United States on a bike, I thought, it's big. And so we started planning it. And the reason we chose a tandem is because he is an expert cyclist. Has been cycling and racing since he was in middle school. And I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years. So getting on a tandem bicycle together meant that it leveled the playing field, because he couldn't be 15 miles ahead of me. He could only be 3 feet ahead of me, and we had to work together to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And then just to round everything out, once we made the decision to go, we decided to raise money for Toys for Tots, because we said, if you're going to do something epic, then you should do it for something other than just yourself.
Oh, wow. There's so much to unpack here. So first of all, a dream deferred is not a dream denied. So
Rule number 10 is continue to dream. Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love that. Yeah. And continue to dream and don't give up on your dreams.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while going across the United States, you figure it took us 72 riding days. We were out for about 90 days because we're not spring chickens. You have to take breaks every now and then. And we're going an average of 10 miles an hour. You have a lot of time.
Okay.
There's a lot of time to contemplate life. We talked a lot. We listened to music, but even then, there's not a lot else intruding during a
Right.
ride. Is you're riding,
Mhm.
you're preparing to ride,
Yes.
you're preparing your campsite, you're
Yes.
preparing for bed, and you're riding. That's about the
Mhm.
extent of what you do. And so there's a lot of freedom to like just really think. And I needed to be in my head because my head was full of junk, all kinds of things that said I wasn't good enough and I would never be good enough and I didn't have value. And by the end of the ride, Bruce told everyone that the person that I was at the beginning of the ride was not the person I was at the end of the ride.
Wow. Okay. Okay, Terry. Okay. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, and I want to get the most out of this whole thing. First of all, like you said, your husband is an expert cyclist
Right.
and you are not. You hadn't been on a bike for 40 years. Now, though, even though he's an expert, and you said you all are not spring chickens, how did you physically prepare for this journey?
So the first thing I had to do, I was significantly overweight. I'm still overweight, but I was significantly overweight. So I started really trying to take care of myself, losing some weight, doing a little bit of exercise, trying to get myself ready to be able to go on a trip like this. Because the truth is, when you're on a bicycle and you're overweight, that's weight you're hauling.
Yes.
So if I'm hauling an extra, and I was 70 pounds overweight at the time, and if you're hauling an extra 70 pounds around, that's a lot of extra weight to have to get up hills and whatnot. So I
Yes.
did that. Then we just started doing practice rides where we would get out on the tandem and we would just in our neighborhood, just around our county, just out. So that
Mm-hmm.
I could learn to feel more comfortable. So we could develop a cadence, a rhythm to our
Yes.
pedaling so that he felt comfortable and I felt comfortable. Even practicing things like, this will sound crazy, but how you start and how you stop. It's
Absolutely.
not like being on a single bike. Start on a tandem, you both have to be ready.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so he would get onto the bike first. He would
Okay.
then both feet on the ground, hold the handlebars and steady. And I would put one foot onto the pedal, swing my leg around, tell him that I was over and ready. I would adjust the pedals to level. He would put his left foot in. We would then adjust the pedals to high low and count to 3 and start. We would
Ugh.
pedal and then stick our foot into that pedal on the right side. There was just a very, you had to get used to it. And stopping was similar. We're going to stop. We're starting to brake. He puts his foot down. I put my foot down. We lean always to the left. You know what I'm saying? You get a rhythm. And we had to
Yes.
learn all of
Yes. Okay. And so now again, okay, so I'm diving deep. So why did you choose to start in Washington State?
it. Okay. So we actually started in Oregon.
Oh, excuse me, Oregon.
That's
I'm thinking
okay.
about
That's
Washington on the other side. Excuse
yeah,
me.
the prevailing winds are usually from the west to the east.
Hmm?
So if you're riding from Washington, D.C. to Oregon, you're going to have more headwinds.
Got
And riding into headwinds is not enjoyable. It
right.
also puts some of the hardest ride at the very end because you're going over the Rockies and then you're going over the Cascades and you're going over
Mhm.
toward the end. Although you're stronger because you've had more experience, you're also more tired because you've
Right.
been doing it a long time. And we just felt like maybe fresh legs at the hardest part would be a better scenario. So
Right.
that's why we did it that way. And we live on the East Coast. So
Yes.
we had to ship everything out to Oregon,
Okay.
then
o-
fly ourselves out to Oregon, and
Okay.
then we pedaled all the way back.
Okay. So now you have things on your back while in tandem on the bike.
So I
Yeah.
had a backpack. And then we also had bags that kind of hang on the wheels. So we had 2 bags on the front wheel and 2 bags on the back wheel. And then we had a trailer that normally would hold 2 children, like if you're doing, but instead
Yeah.
we had it full of camping gear.
Got you. Oh
So it
gosh.
looked like a small parade.
Right. Okay. So you're carrying stuff. You're riding a two-wheel bike. It doesn't have not the training wheels, but it's not made like
No,
a
right.
three-wheeler.
No.
But you are carrying a trailer on the back, and you all have the nerve to camp along the way, not stopping in a hotel,
No,
not
we
even a
did
Hampton Inn.
sometimes. Sometimes we did stay at, and hotels would be wrong. We stayed at motels, and even that sometimes is not quite true. We stayed at some really, yeah, questionable places. But what we really needed was, is there running water? Is there a place to lay our heads? And is there
Right.
some place to eat close by? So if you're
Right.
not camping, then you can't do the campfire. So you have to make sure that, because once we were done for the day, we didn't want to hop back on the bike and ride 5 miles to get to a restaurant.
Exactly. Exactly. So this had to take tremendous planning and knowing where you wanted to stop each and every day. This was a tremendous
So what's crazy is
project.
I had a feeling that I could plan that all from my kitchen table before we left. So I had this whole plan and I knew where we were going to stop every day. And day one, we didn't get as far as I thought, and that was okay. And I just adjusted my little thing. We were going to be fine. And day two also didn't work quite the way I thought it would. So I adjusted. And day three, I threw that out because it wasn't going to work. Because
Right.
I had not accounted for every day is not the same. Some days are very hot. Some days are very cold. Some days the winds are against you. Some days it's incredibly hilly. Some days everything is perfect and you go twice as far as you thought you were going to go.
Right.
So what we did is we learned that at the end of the day, we had maps from adventure cycling, and these maps, they have them for all across the United States. What they are, roads that they believe are accessible for bicycles, and then where you
Okay.
can find places to sleep, food, and that kind of thing. And they're all laid out in this map. And so we would sit with our map and say, okay, we're going to pick a short place, a medium place, and a long place to land.
Okay.
And then the next day, as we're pulling up to that first possible stopping point, we would say, okay, the next stopping place is 11 miles from here. Do we have 11 more miles? And the answer was either yes or no. And then we either stopped or went. And then you would get to place number two and you would do the same thing. The next one is 12 and a half miles from here. Do you have enough for 12 and a half miles? Some days you didn't have that option. There was one day in particular that I remember that we had to go 70 miles. There was nothing between where we were and that 70-mile mark. There was no choice. And on a day like that, you just had to do 70 miles.
Gosh, wow. Okay, okay, I'm getting so much out of this, and I'm doing this for a reason. Our family, we have driven across country 3 times?
Yeah.
We've driven across country 3 times, and along the way, it usually takes us 3 to 4 days to get out to Los Angeles because we're driving, and we'll take a stop at a hotel, and we like to just stop and see different little points of
Right.
America we don't normally see. America is huge in a car.
Right.
Driving a car, America is huge.
Huge.
People, if you've never done that before, you don't know how big the United States is, okay? And how gorgeous it is at
Right.
different parts.
Exactly.
So that took a lot of energy, and my husband was driving. I was not driving that much. When I could, I would kick in. And then we have 2 grown sons who have licenses and couldn't drive. It takes a lot. That's a lot of energy, and we were so glad to when we put our heads down at a Hampton Inn, and was glad to relax and go into town or whatever. And so with all of that said, what you did was absolutely grueling.
It,
That's
it was grueling, but it was also, there is
exhilarating.
something, yeah, there's something to be said about having only one thing on your plate.
Yes.
Like, I wasn't burdened with anything else. You just drove. You got on road. You just got on your bike and you pedaled until you got where you were going. You set up your tent. You made your food. I would write my blog because I kept a blog the whole way across. And then I would go to sleep. And then I would get up in the morning and we would undo either the campsite or pack ourselves up if we had stayed in a motel. And then we would get on the bike and we would ride. And then you would do the same thing again. And it was the same thing. And so there was something nice about not having all the other pressures of life. You have this one focus only. And It was grueling and it was tiring, but it was also very exciting. Each day as you would look and you'd realize how much closer you are to actually finishing this huge adventure, that you're going to make it after all. Especially once we got like into Ohio. So we went into UP, Michigan, and then down across Ohio to Pittsburgh, and then Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. So when we're doing that down into Ohio part, it was like, we're going to make it. Like, there's no doubt we're going to make it. Oh my gosh, we're going to make it. Right. The coolest thing for me, though, was on the last day. So we're now down around the DC area. My husband had worked there for years, so he knew exactly where he was. I did not. Like, I had it, but I didn't know where I was. And he's pointing out places. So I used to work in that building and that kind of thing. And we came around this corner and up a hill. You always end up. I do not understand that, but I swear to you, if there's a motel, it's up. If there's a campground, it's up. If wherever the restaurant you wanted to stop at is up. So we're going up this hill and I can see a flag off to the left. And he said, "Do you see that flag?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "That is the flag to the memorial we're stopping at." And I started to cry. And then I laughed. And then I cried, and then I laughed, and that was a thing that I did for the next hour, laughing and crying with people that had met us there and everything else. And I realized that I had made it all the way across the United States. Me, a desk jockey, someone who hadn't been on a bicycle. This was not normal for me, and that I had done it. And that if I could do that, I could do anything I put my mind to. And it was, what is it that I want to do? And I wanted to be an author. And 14 months later, my first book came out.
Oh, Teri, and you kept listen to this, you kept all of this away from me, and we have met 3 other occasions.
It's funny. I don't purposely keep it from people, but it depends a lot, like where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
And so I think our conversation has always been very focused on the particular book at the time.
Yeah.
And this book is a book, but it focuses on this journey that got me to those 3 books.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, so Teri, back to a little bit of practicality, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about lessons learned.
Super.
Rain,
Oh, yeah. And hail.
rain.
Yeah. You ride in it. So you continue to ride in the rain unless it is miserable. Like the wind is bad, like it's dangerous. And as long as it's not dangerous, you just keep riding. We were actually out in the hail one time.
Sorry about that, Teri. I think internet slipped off.
Okay, so I don't know if it's still recording on your end, showing that it is on mine. Is it showing that it is on yours?
Yes, but I'll edit that out. So I'll go back to the
good. Just
main
as long as it's
phone.
still recording. I didn't want it to. So
I
what's the
know.
last thing you heard?
Here we go. So I'll start here. So Teri, rain.
Yes, it did. It rained. It hailed. It was cold. It was the winds were high, and we rode in everything that was not dangerous. So there was a time in Minnesota where we saw a storm coming. Looked big. It looked not just an hour big, it looked big. So I started doing deep research into it, looking to see what can we find. And this storm was going to be a 3-day storm, and it was going to have 60-mile-an-hour straight line winds. Oh, we cannot be riding in that, and we cannot even be camping in that. So we found we found a motel that was next to a Walmart and across the street from like an Applebee's kind of restaurant. And we said, perfect. We hunkered down. So we went to Walmart. We got our motel. We went to Walmart, got a supply of easy to throw into the microwave foods because they had this small refrigerator and a tiny microwave.
Right.
And said, we'll go over there for dinner and we'll eat breakfast and lunch here in the room. And we hunkered down for 3 days.
Yes, very good. Now let's go to hunt. And like you said, we've driven across the country to Los Angeles and we've driven back home. And so when we were coming back home, there was a stretch after the Hoover Dam, which was extremely hot, by the way. But after the Hoover Dam, you rode, and I swear, and we were on I-40, and I swear we were the only people out there, and it's long stretches, and you'll see a sign, and I think all Americans need to see these signs. You'll see a sign that says Navajo Nation, and it blows your mind because it's expanse. And you look to the right and left, you see nothing but the expanse. And it says Navajo Nation, or it'll say, I forgot the other tribe that I saw also on this drive, but it's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. And so those stretches of time where there's nothing, there's no hotels, there's no restaurants. Did you all go through those stretches of the nations of the first people?
Yes. So we rode through 2 different reservations, and I cannot now remember the names because they're ones that I'm not familiar with, and I don't even want to do the injustice of trying to pronounce what it was that I was going in. But we went through 2, and there are areas, and especially even when you're not even in the reservation areas, but across eastern Montana, especially as north as we were on Highway 2, which was always probably no more than 40 or 50 miles from the Canadian border at any given time.
Oh,
And so we're way north, and there were in between little towns, there was nothing.
yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so we had water. And so we had these bags that would fit into the backpack, and they had a little straw that comes around, and the straw hangs here so that you can sip. So
Yes.
I think they're called camel packs.
Okay.
So we would have water in our camel packs, but we would also have water jars, jugs with lids, and we had those all in the frame of our bike. So we would carry 6 or 7 of those. And then whenever we stopped, we would fill whatever we had emptied because you didn't want to be without water, especially in the heat.
Right. Most definitely. Most definitely.
And so we would always fill our water back up. And then we always carried with us just our snacks. And so it'd be like peanuts and craisins and usually some M&Ms or something like that thrown in there because who doesn't want a little bit of chocolate? And so we would always have that. And then something, and this is because my husband is the most prepared person on the face of the planet. We carried several dehydrated meals that you just had to add water and could heat it up. And because we had the little stove and because we always had our water with us, he didn't ever want us to be stuck and not have, because without food, we can't fuel our bike.
Exactly.
We're like gas station. It's like you have to make sure that we're going to be able to do it. So we always had like packs of oatmeal, and we always had a couple of dehydrated camping meals too that we could use should we need them along the way.
Wow. I'm just flabbergasted. So if you don't mind my asking, in 2020, how old were you?
57?
You were 57 4 years ago. Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
because Briss is 12 years older and he was 69.
And he was 69.
Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. Okay. Now, with that said, what I've gotten out of this, and if what I'm saying is in your book.
Okay.
So first of all, you're a heck of a supportive spouse because if my spouse was a world class type of cyclist and said, I want to go from Oregon to Washington, I would say, okay,
Have fun.
congratulations and keep me posted for when you. But so do you speak on support in your 10 little rules? Is that thrown in your
Yeah, not in that way, because believe it or not, I felt as supported as he did.
Okay.
Because I also wanted to do something big and bold. And I think Bruce really understand how badly I needed to do something that would help me get past a 14-year emotionally abusive relationship. I tell everyone he married me damaged. I was a damaged individual who was really trying hard to figure herself out, but I was still a mess.
Yeah.
And he saw around that. I think he could see the person that I was. And so he was as supportive of me. Can you imagine the kind of man you have to be willing to, first of all, take on this damaged individual? And secondly, take someone who is not an experienced cyclist, stick them on the back of your tandem and help them figure this out so that they can go across the United States with you. I mean,
That
I
that's a hell
actually
of a
look
thing.
at it as he was more supportive of me than I was of him. I said, sure, let's do this crazy thing. And he said, okay, here are the 83 ways I'm going to help you do it. He was,
Hell of a thing.
yeah,
That's a little bit of a message, and this is not our subject to say to people, don't give up hope. There are people out there, no matter what your
absolutely.
age, there are people out there
Absolutely.
that's good people that can be supportive partners or spouses. There's some good people
Absolutely.
out there.
And
Wow.
without a doubt, he is that person. I do have something. Hold on to your hat. I don't know that you're aware. He
Uh-oh.
was diagnosed with brain cancer in June of 2022, and he passed away in January. So my person,
Terry.
yeah,
Oh
my
my gosh,
person,
Terry.
yeah,
Terry, no. Terry, no. Terry, no.
that's
I'm,
that's the
oh,
way I feel about it too. But we
Terry.
tell everyone that though we didn't have a lot of time together, the time we had was amazing. And that 3 months on a tandem bicycle is equivalent to 20 years of marriage. And so we tell everyone that so we've been married, we would have been married almost 6 years when he passed, but that we really were married 26 years in tandem.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Terry, you are taking me in all kinds of directions today. I think this might be my very favorite. This might be my very favorite. Oh,
so now
Terry,
the book
yeah.
was scheduled to come out. And so when he passed away, I had the opportunity, of course, to delay the coming out of the book, but I didn't want to. And I felt like being able to continue to talk about him and the wonderful things that we did would be helpful for me. And it would be a way to grieve in a more positive manner. The book came out on February 14th. And the reason that we had it come out then was because even though this book is about lessons that I learned across the United States, there's also some of my love story in there. You can see how he and I supported one another and loved one another through this whole adventure. And so it was just a perfect date. And I didn't want to stop that. And I could hear him. My rule number 3 is do hard things. And I could hear him telling me as I was trying to contemplate, do I push this off? Because can I really get on a podcast and talk about him without falling apart and crying? And I heard his voice of do hard things, and I knew that's what I needed to do. So I decided just to continue doing what we were doing. And the book is now out. And yeah, and it has been a blessing to be able to talk about these wonderful experiences that we had instead of remembering the last couple of weeks, which were never pretty. The end of cancer is never pretty.
No, it is not. It is
No,
not. I've seen the last few weeks of cancer, and it's absolutely not.
it's just never pretty. And
Mm.
I think that having the ability to talk about how he supported me and how we supported one another and how we had to work together and all the beautiful things that we saw and all the wonderful things that we did has really been a blessing. So the timing is incredible. I wanted so much for him to be here to see this part. But on the other hand, I think that the timing, the way it is, has really been a beautiful thing.
Yes, Teri, again, and now it's even more. There's so much here. There's so much here. Because can you imagine if you didn't do the hard thing of taking that bike ride with him? You all would have just been, I'm not saying that this is true what I'm saying, but you would have been together. You would have been in North Carolina, living day to day, he doing his thing, you doing your writing, and you just would have been slogging along is what I'm putting it. We just live our 9 to 5, and then from 5 to bedtime is just regular stuff. But because you all did the hard thing, that's how you all fell more in love, got closer, you understood each other on a deeper level. And those few years you had with him were made better, stronger,
Yep.
if everything because you took that bike ride. Oh,
And when you think about it, we did it in the summer of 2020, which is COVID summer.
that's right.
And so we had a lot of people telling us, oh, you shouldn't try it. You shouldn't try it. You shouldn't go. You
Yeah.
shouldn't go. And we decided that we were going to try it. And that if we couldn't make it because of COVID, that wherever we were, we could stop, we could rent a car, we could do something, we could get back home. We would figure it out. Because we're in the United States. It's not like we were in some foreign country. We'd be able to get home. We would be able to figure it out.
And speak the language.
Yeah. And you know that what you have around you are people that the medical care, all of your insurance will work. Everything is going to be okay. So we just decided we're going to give it a shot. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Because really in the summer of 2021, there was still COVID going around, which means we wouldn't have done it. In the summer of 22, we found out he had cancer. And then for the next 2.5 years, we dealt with cancer. And so we wouldn't have never gone had we not gone when we did. It would have always been a dream on a bucket list that never happened. And instead, we had this amazing trip. We learned so much about one another. Then we had another year and a half before he got sick. So we went up the coast of Maine and did a 300-mile trip up the coast of Maine. We did all kinds of other things. He loved to kayak, and so we were out kayaking, and we did so many amazing things, all of which strengthened both of us for the journey that he had to take when he got cancer. And these rules, so many of these rules were used during that journey as well, where it was like, let's think about what we learned on that trip. We can do hard things. We can set aside our fear. We know not to quit on a bad day. All of those things that we learned on the trip became things that we would hang on to at different portions of the cancer journey.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. And so you wanted to also find out about your value.
Yeah.
So what was your final lesson? This is before he got sick.
Yeah.
What was when you got to Washington and saw
I realized I could do anything. I realized that, and what then I really realized is everything that I need to succeed, it's in me. Okay, everything you need is in you. Maybe you don't know how to tap it, but it's there. And so this idea that I needed to get value because other people found value in me, that's crazy.
That's
It
right.
starts from you. You
Yeah.
have to believe you have value. And if you believe it, those around you will eventually believe it. And if they don't, get rid of them. You
Right.
don't need a person like that in your life. But I learned that I already had it. And I
Yeah.
just had to discover how to tap into it. And so
Yeah.
if you don't know how to tap into it, talk to a friend, talk to a therapist, talk to a pastor,
Right.
talk to your spouse. Figure it out. Take a class, read a book. Because what we need to succeed in life, whatever that success looks like for you, and I don't mean necessarily a trip across the United States on a tandem, and I don't necessarily mean becoming CEO of a company. Whatever it is that you want that brings you joy, you have that ability inside of you
Yeah.
to find it.
Yes.
Because if it's not there for you, and it's just a matter of figuring out where it's hiding, because that's all that's happening is it's hidden and you don't know how
Yes.
to get into it. And for me, the ride helped me tap into all of those places because I did really hard things. I did things so far outside my comfort zone.
Yes.
I
Yes.
hadn't been on a bicycle in 40 years and I took a tandem bicycle over the Rocky Mountains. Whew. Okay, if you can dig and find the ability to do something like, then something like, gee, I want to be an author becomes a much easier endeavor.
Most
You know, I
definitely.
can do that from a chair in my office. Let's go.
Yes. Yes. I get it. I get it. Terry, I'm contemplating having a part 2 of this.
I would love that. I'm
There is
gladly
so
come
much
for a
more
part
to
two.
unpack,
Yeah.
but your book is available everywhere.
It is. It is. And definitely have people head over to my website, which is my name, Teri M. Brown with one R. And there at the website, you can, if you're in the US, you can buy a signed copy of my book or any of my books for that matter. I have a newsletter you can sign up for. I usually reach out twice a month. Once is stuff about me, and once are books that I've been reading. And hey, here's some books and what you might like. I have a
Right.
podcast that I do where I interview other authors. And so you can listen to podcast episodes and find your next best read.
Right.
And then there's just all my socials are there. So if you're a social media person, like you can find me on everything. And then I just have a contact page. And so if you just wanted to reach out and say, hey, Teri, I'd like more information about, reach out. I'd love to chat.
Yes. Yes. We'll be reaching out again, and I would like to have a follow-up to this interview.
Fantastic. I would love that. Thank you so much for having me today.
No problem, Terry. You're always a joy, and I will be talking to you soon.
Thank you.